Bayley has made a very interesting demand to WWE officials in this video. I'm going to tell you exactly what she had to say and why it is so important that WWE follows through on this demand, because Bayley is coming off of a major loss at SummerSlam. She dropped the Women's Championship to Nia Jax, a title in which she won at WrestleMania. She finally got a WrestleMania moment. This was after, obviously, winning the Women's Royal Rumble match, another first in her career earlier this year, getting her where she needed to go. But Bayley, like a lot of folks out there, especially women, they have seen the progression within WWE. They've seen the way that the company has handled the women's division and how far it has come, right? We have pioneers like Trish Stratus and Lita and Molly Holly and Mickie James and Victoria and Jazz and all of these stars. And then we had to go through the Divas era, despite having some of the best in-ring workers there, if they were just given the opportunity, like Natalya. I would even say like a Eve Torres and a Michelle McCool were actually very solid wrestlers. It was not until the fans, they were the ones that called for the change. They wanted to see something different. We got a taste of that in TNA for years. We got to see what was available, what could be in women's wrestling. But it wasn't until the WWE fans rallied. They wanted change in the company. They've seen a little bit of it in NXT, thanks to the likes of Emma, Natalya, and Paige. And we finally got that on the main roster. Gone were the days of the Divas era. Jesus, that was terrible. But what we got was women's wrestling being taken more seriously, allowing talents to work just like the men, being able to throw a working punch in their matches. They were able to do that to the point where the evolution happened after the revolution, to the point where they even named a standalone PLE after it. And now we, and a lot of people would agree with this, are in the golden era of women's wrestling. And you can thank the likes of Bayley for helping pave the way. She's been around long enough. She was part of the revolution, the evolution, and now the golden age. The likes of Charlotte Flair and Mercedes Moné and Becky Lynch. Those were stars on the forefront to lead us to this change. Now, Bayley, she's been doing a lot of media heading into SummerSlam and coming out of it. And while speaking on the Hall of Fame podcast with Booker T, she talked about having the idea of introducing a mid-card title for women on the main roster. Because why? They just did it in NXT via the NXT Women's North American title. She believes that women's tag team titles should also be given more prominence. That's what she had to say. Of course, yeah. I think they're doing that in NXT right now with the NXT Women's North American title. Yeah, I would love for us to have something like that. I think that would be great. But I always have this, as proud as I am of the women's tag team titles, they don't get always that time. They don't always get those matches. So first, I would love to see those take off, and then I would love to see the women's tag division kind of be put on the map and be on pay-per-views with us. She continued, I just feel like we need a little bit more TLC, tender, love, and care. A little more love, because so many women have been able to hold them, but we haven't been able to have that match yet, where it's like, okay, we solidify the women's tag team division, now bringing in another one. But when that happens, I believe it will. I know that it's going to help a lot of other women shine. Now, this is something in which Bayley, this is something in which a lot of women in WWE have talked about a lot recently, which is, can we give these women more on television, right? They have a stacked roster across Raw, NXT, and SmackDown. But most of the time, you will have the championship feud. So think women's or just women's world title feud. And then you have a secondary feud in which has two separate participants. Usually the winner of that feud will eventually go up and challenge for the champion once the title feud is over with. Everyone else is pretty much off television and or not working, but appearing in backstage segments. That's a problem. You need storylines, you need feuds, you need reasons for women to not only appear on television, leads to matches, but more importantly, more matches regularly, right? You need them in regular spots, because without them, people get lost in the shuffle and fans forget about who's on TV and who's not on TV, who won this match, who lost that match, who won that feud, who lost that feud. You can see where I'm going down the pecking order. With the women's tag team titles, these titles have never necessarily been given the opportunity in which I and a lot of people actually think they should be used. There's only been a certain set of champions that have actually been able to bring prestige, but more importantly, have enough star power behind them with the office and the fan base where WWE puts a priority on said championships. I can think of 2 tag teams that have done that. Maybe 3 if you're including the Iconics. One of which was Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair a few months ago, but they had a somewhat short reign. The other set of champions were the inaugural champions, and they were also champions during the pandemic era in, I believe, 2022, could have been 21 as well. And that was Mercedes Moné, a.k.a. Sasha Banks, and Bayley, ironically. Bayley and Moné, they were the ones that called for WWE to introduce said championships. They wanted tag team titles for the women, and I actually think that the tag team titles probably serve a more important role over a mid-card title, and I can tell you why. If you look at a mid-card title, you only have 2, most of the time, stars involved in a program. But if you have tag team titles, and if you put a priority on tag team titles, then that gives 4 people time to shine. And they don't necessarily need to be in a regular tag team. They could be a makeshift tag team. Look at Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. Now, I understand that a lot of people out there will be like, well, Bianca and Jade, they're a special breed. And to a certain degree, I would agree with that. And I would honestly say that Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair would agree with that. They are not the conventional makeshift tag team where they got to make it work until this is over kind of thing. Jade Cargill, Bianca Belair, and I recently touched on this in a recent Jade Cargill video, but she was talking about how they are like peanut butter and jelly. They're really good friends outside of the ring, and they just gel inside of the ring, and that chemistry and them being competitive has helped them shine as a tag team, has helped them form a regular, relationship and knowing what they can and cannot do inside of the ring without even having to communicate. Like, that's the type of chemistry in which those two bring. So, with all that being said, I'm a big fan of women's tag team titles.